Hello? Is it working now? Don't see anybody watching. I'm going to wait for my friends to try to join. Whatever they did last time, it worked. So let him in there. All right, can you see me? Can you hear me? Whatever you did last time, make it work, man. I can't tell if it's working. There's nothing. Last time a little thing popped up to invite you. So, okay, we're gonna. Dang it! I hit the wrong button that time. All right, this time I've got you. Okay, I'll see you in a second. There you are. You're back again.
Okay, we're back.
Hello.
Okay. So,
Nope, you're all good.
So maybe we can turn it that way.
Now
It's just pointing up.
you guys are laying down. There, yeah, there, that's better.
All right, so here we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, now we've
Hello.
And for all
Good
of the
deal.
people watching, welcome. And this is, there's Baxter, there's Brian.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Hello.
Lovebirds are going to have to get together so I can see you both. And Andrea.
I'm trying. There we are. So here we go.
Not all up in my face.
Hey, thanks for having us.
I'm so happy that you were willing to do this. I feel like I'm super right on top of the camera and I can't even reach it.
Right. We've got an intruder here.
Okay.
Cool.
So here, go ahead and get started.
All right. So we have to lock Baxter out.
You might hear a bark from my Devlin.
What's that?
You might hear a bark from my Devlin too. He was just barking.
Let me turn you. Yeah, I don't know why he really wants to be on camera right now.
Okay. So.
Okay.
Good. Scooch back a little bit. There we go. So, Andrea,
Yes, I like this.
Brian, you are. Oh, you're both there now. Okay,
Yeah,
you
dog is
have
gone.
agreed to be my first interview, and I could not be more happy about that. You're going to help so many people.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, so I have a few questions. I, for some reason, can't see if anybody's commenting or even if anybody's watching right now. Maybe you're just talking to me.
Yeah. Hey.
Okay, so tell our viewers just a little bit about yourselves, your kids, just a little bit about what you got going on.
All right. Awesome. So, hi everyone, and thanks for even entertaining the notion of listening to us. I'm Brian Ketchens, 45. I'm still holding on to that for another couple of months. Yeah, exactly. So we know the story here. Lived in Jackson pretty much my entire life. Work at Consumers Energy. We proud parent of 3 boys. And so excited about just sharing our adventure here with special needs, and very much appreciate you having us. So thanks.
And who's the lovely lady next to you?
I am Andrea Ketchens, and I was born in Jackson, and I traveled quite a bit. And that's when I had my oldest son is 22, who lives in California, and he's awesome. And then came back here, met this guy, who I love very much. And we had 2 boys together, Ezra and Jude. And Jude just turned 11 yesterday.
Oh.
So happy birthday to Jude.
And is Jude is the one we're going to be talking about today.
Jude Alexander, the Great.
Yep. So Jude is the reason for the season here today.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about Jude.
All right. Well, I'll get started. She knows more for sure, but I'm less shy. So Jude just turned 11 yesterday. So we're just kind of reminiscing, one of those weird things where it's kind of a mom holiday, but kids co-opt it. So he came out, very interesting. He was the only cesarean section, came out, tried to hide. Doctor said it was the most difficult thing to find to extract this young guy. Got out, flipped over, all sorts of fun stuff. Jude is a totally interesting little character, very much like tech savvy, as most every child is these days. He kind of takes it to the extreme. He multitasks.
Yeah.
And so
he also, if you put in your passcode in your phone, it does, if you're in the same room, even if you have the phone to like the back to his face, he'll know what you punched in. So just, and if you don't change it in 2 years, he'll pick your phone up and he'll remember that passcode, and then he'll start changing things, and you'll find videos, and he's
so
do that.
Yep. So one of the things I would offer up, and if there's anyone out there listening, is obviously like these children all have like unique special abilities. And so the special part of the special needs, they need quite a bit more support, but the special part is like off the charts. And he's not much different in that regard. And so all of us parents are thankful, because it's really like, it's basically like the brains work entirely different than ours, right? And so they view the world through a completely different prism, no self-consciousness for one, and some of these things. So that's been interesting every single day. There's just no shame in any bit of the game, which is neat. And I'm sure that we share that with the rest of the folks out here.
You know, I was in a training one time, and as a teacher, and the best phrase I could repeat from that training was, if you've met one autistic child, you've met one autistic child.
Yeah. Exactly right.
It's one of my favorite quotes, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, very accurate. I think that like every one of them has just completely different set of what their needs are and how they develop. So when Jude started out, I guess jumping a little bit forward. So when Jude started out, we used to make fun of the idea. He literally seemed like he did not want to learn. He just would avoid eye contact and some of these weird things. So we would joke around like, this guy just does not, like, lazy mentally.
Well, yeah, we kind of thought he was, because he's the third child.
Yeah.
And, like what my grandma used to say, early to walk, late to talk. Because like no one spoke for him. And he started walking at 8 months old. The day he turned 8 months, he started taking his first steps off of the couch. So we were just like, a little frightened, a little like, okay, this is really weird. But, so we actually just thought he was lazy.
Yeah, and joked about it, and like straight up, like, this guy does not want to learn. He's avoiding eye contact, some of these other things.
Yeah.
But as far as the walking, absolutely didn't crawl a day, not once.
No, physically always very strong.
Okay, all right. Okay. So Jude is the youngest, right? Mm-hmm. Jude is your youngest.
Yep.
And how does well, you kind of talked a little bit about how he differs in development. Like, he clearly has been through 2 other kids before. So what?
Well, with him, I mean, he was always, like I said, a little weird. Like, even when he came home from the hospital, he didn't like to be held close. He did not want to breastfeed. He liked to be held back over here and have a bottle. He's just like, get out of my face. He didn't, people come over, want to pass him around, and he just get upset. Like, that was almost immediately. And then it just seemed as we went on, his toys didn't interest him. He went through like a tiny phase where things were funny to him. Like, he'd throw a block at his brother and laugh. And we're like, okay, well, there's some emotion.
Okay.
But he doesn't play with toys.
At least.
Yeah. But he just didn't play with toys appropriately. And then he wouldn't say even mama, dada. Like, he just wasn't hitting milestones.
Okay.
So that's where, like, the big issue was, like, at 2 years old, he's not talking at all, not saying any words. So was that the question? Am I?
Yeah, you're like, I'm. No, I was just looking at you while you're talking. So no,
that was the 5-alarm fire.
You're doing all good.
No,
2 years.
Great. I know this is a little weird, but make it
and he was fun. And he was one of those kids who liked to stare at the ceiling fan. He would get over there and just stare at the ceiling fan and wouldn't say words, and was just interested in everything. And so that's when we reached out to say, like, what's going on with this one? That was about,
It
that
was actually his 18-month checkup.
I think that's
Before
when
that,
it
we'd already seen
started.
some something's not quite right here, right? And so the goal, at least for us, was just to identify what we could do to help. So it was never any like fear of anything. He's been normal, so like he's different for sure, but he's been totally normal. So it's just like, okay, well, something's missing and don't know what to call it. So, so you flash back, I guess, not 8.5, 9 years now, 9.5 years, and the autism scene was different. And so what with the resources were available, and I know we'll touch upon that a little bit later, but the idea that autism was something your kid had was kind of still developing. So they had all these basically autism awareness. 1 out of every 6 boys has autism. And I'm like, I've never seen that in my life. So where's this coming from? What are these numbers? And so you start learning that that's really relative to the spectrum, right? So versus like he's classically autistic. I guess we didn't really cover that. He is, if you have the high functioning, low functioning, he is classically definitionally autistic, right in the middle, which means that everything you have to basically build every single idea or concept from scratch. So it's bottom up type of deal. So lots of times most everyone picks up things just by looking at and observing. And so he asked the idea of time is something that just, you can explain to your cognitively, what's cognitive normal?
Neurotypical.
Yeah. So sorry, definitely like missing the mark on that.
It's a fairly new term.
Neurotypical.
Yeah, and
I've only heard that in the last few years.
Yeah, and I'm still out of the loop on that. So I came up with cognitively something, but so that was some of the things that we noticed right away. There was never any real apprehension to what it was called. Wouldn't have known it was autism. There was some reluctance on behalf of the people that eventually started to help us to actually, because I guess that a lot of people have a difficult time when they hear that autism, their child's diagnosed as autistic or might be.
I remember when they told us, she sat us down and it was almost like she was telling us like he had only so many days to live. And she's like, well, he's autistic. And I was like, kind of I was kind of thinking it was something along that, those lines. And obviously I didn't know what that meant for him or for us at that moment. But I mean, and she was really nice, and we had people.
It's from the early on program. So they did in the early on program did the initial evaluation. So we talked with our primary physician or the kid's pediatrician and said like, hey, don't know what this is, but this is something we need to follow up with. And so then they contacted early on. He agreed, obviously, that there was something not quite right. When we were trying to get him weighed and measured, he was just like, would not comply. And so, very strong, but certainly was not ready to follow any sort of instructions at, well into a year and a half or at a year and a half. And so they put us in contact with the early on folks. They scheduled an assessment. She came over to our house, which is great. Nice lady. And she went through her assessment and she was kind of hemming around the edges as to what exactly it was. And I was like, well, is it autism? And I'm not sure why. It's probably because through autism awareness. And she was like, oh, breathe a sigh of relief. And then after that, like things started to move.
Yeah, that's right. You did.
When just in my position as a teacher, when I was teaching, a lot of parents would be hearing for the first time that their child has autism or has a learning disability or something. And especially if it's like a mild something that you wouldn't have picked up on right away. And so I think there are a lot of they have a lot of experiences with parents who aren't ready for the information. So when you offer it up, it makes it a lot easier to approach that subject.
Sure. So that was the experience that we had. It was very much, I'm sure it's probably pretty difficult for a lot of people. For us, it was literally just problem solving. Like, hey, we want to do whatever we can, however we need to do it. So it never, ever even played into the calculus as far as like, what, God forbid we have an autistic son. It was more like, okay, well, I mean, so now we can start down the road of trying to get him some help and we'll sort out what things are what we know now at 11 years old is entirely different than what we were preying on when he was 1.5. Like, no idea if he's going to, like, what school's going to look like, what his life's going to look like. And now it's starting to, some of those areas are starting to fill themselves in a little bit. So,
so what were the
But
next
it's
steps
still,
that you took once you found that out, like early on?
well, they made it really easy for us because from there it was instantly, we met Karen Mays at Lyle Torrent, and it was Slim class. I couldn't remember what SLIM stood for, but he immediately, so he's been at Torrent since he was like 2.5.
yeah, right at 2, really.
I think it was right at 2, and he started Slim class
Can I
with.
pause for just a second? So we have viewers from all over the United States. So we're in Jackson, Michigan here. The Lyle Torrance Center, I just want to touch on, is a self-contained program for students with special needs. It's outside of the regular public education schools, but publicly funded.
Yeah, that's a useful point. And so for
sorry about
folks
that.
that are not, it's probably the most valuable resource. Like, we're like absolutely lucky, blessed to have it here. So Lyle Torrent was a severely impaired little kid that had all sorts of different problems, and so there were no resources available. And so this is, I believe, and Laura, you probably know better, somewhere around 40 some odd years old is Lyle Torrent, as far as the school is concerned.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how long it's been around. I know that it's run through the Jackson ISD.
Right.
So.
Yeah, go ahead.
So
Sorry.
yeah, they were. It seemed like kind of a whirlwind because it was like once the diagnosis was there, and then it was the direction and like they told us where to go, and then they had home visits, and it seemed like all week long, and sometimes it would get like to me it was really stressful because all of a sudden I had this like kid who was just kind of doing weird stuff, and now we're like all involved in this and this and this, and but they really guided us through, and so I feel like we never really had to go to any sort of outside agency for quite some time because they made it really easy for us they gave us the resources and kind of guided us along. So that's
sure. It was definitely like a single point of contact for the first bit, all the way up leading into him being enrolled in school really early. And so we did have some like physical therapy stuff and some, what is the other? OT, occupational therapy, where they just come in and basically observe. Getting an actual autism diagnosis, like the official diagnostic version of it, is a little bit different with respect to this. So this is just,
we did
suspect.
That at U of M.
Yeah, we did do that. And so this was just this is autism, but it's not like actually something that's actionable from the state and local level. So you actually have to have a diagnosis from a clinical psychologist, and before that you can go forward with any sort of assistance sort of programs.
Right.
So this was all stopgap measures that didn't cost us $1 here locally. It did, like, the village descended upon the autistic child rather quickly, which was really neat. I mean, it's just like all of a sudden you have a team of people to work with. And so sorting all that out was a little bit of a whirlwind. Certainly impacted Andrea quite a bit more. I was still going to work, so she had to deal with kind of on the front end of it. So I can't speak to her experience, but I know that a village, and we've needed the village the entire time. Thankful to have them. It's one of those things I think it's kind of misnomer that it takes a village to raise a child. Generally, it starts at home. With autistic people and children, I found that you absolutely need all sorts of support. And so I guess that's my biggest takeaway, is that we've been lucky and fortunate and blessed to have all of these wonderful people, yourself included, Laura, as resources along this journey, because it really does take an awful lot of people with a lot of different expertise that a parent normally just kind of wing it with your kids, throw them a little soup bone and call it good.
Yeah, they didn't give us a manual. They were just like, here's a baby.
Yeah, like here you go.
Your kid.
Right. So good luck. And so like this required, it's, a whole lot of additional care and building up those blocks. I would have never known where to start.
Yeah.
Just how do you build a concept from scratch? Well, normally you talk in abstract sort of terms. And so even if you demonstrate it and that's not their primary mechanism or vehicle by which they learn, that is just like, where do you start? So the village has been needed. For any folks out there, I guess that all I could offer up is the many hands make lighter work of your special needs children. They're all fun, but they do need a lot of attention. And he's starting to actually peel back some of those at 11 now. He needs less of those things and more speech side and still concept building, math whiz, cool stuff.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that he actually, so he's 11, and he really only started speaking, not even in full sentences, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Okay.
And it just like, for some reason, it like when I was thinking about like Brennan and Logan, and like I was like, there's no way Brennan's the same age as Jude, and I was, because I'm like, there's no way. He's like 27 compared to Jude.
He's an old soul. I will say that my Brennan is an old soul.
Yeah, he does have
He's like haggling over boats and stuff, and here's Jude like throwing iPads into a koi pot, and I'm like, it's a little different. But it really only dawned on me. I was like, wow, it really has only been like 5-6 years that he's been verbal.
Really, as far as sentences are concerned, it's more like a year and a half where he's now starting to put a little bit more complexity into his, but he still like sings when you sing happy birthday to him yesterday, he's like, happy birthday to Jude, like it's still, there's still this association.
If you say happy birthday to him, he'll say happy birthday right back to you. Happy birthday, thank you.
Right. Some of the fun stuff. That stuff's all super cute.
Yeah. So when this village descended on you, it included an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, was there a speech pathologist?
There was a speech pathologist in short order.
Yeah. I mean, at first it was mainly slim classes where they would just do like sensory type things, and they would basically kind of get them a little bit out of their comfort zone to do things that they just really did not want to do. And
did they give these things
then they
in place at your home?
Well, we did have a lady who would come, a gal who came once or twice a week, and then we would try to get him, and a lot of it was trying to get him just to play with toys appropriately. So like some building blocks, let's put blocks on top of blocks. And it really was interesting because every day when she would do that with him, it felt like that was kind of the treatment as well, was, I don't know if the treatment's the right word. The therapy was also like each day was like, just put the block on and like, let's just try to build. And then a lot of times he would get mad and knock them down. And sometimes that was also the same with the therapy, was like he would just go into, really try to fight us on it. And sometimes it was like starting all over again. And I really thought that comparison was kind of interesting. So yeah, we did have stuff at home for a while, but then I think once he got into Lyle Torrent, as far as like in a classroom, we didn't do the.
So I guess to like answer, like just to add on to what you were saying, they come in and they model things for you to do, so you learn like, hey, this is kind of where we need to start. And that's what Andrea was getting at. Like some of it was just straight up building blocks at the beginning and just like stacking them, getting him to just interact with other things, because he essentially was, I mean, like now social distancing, right, is a thing, but he was socially distanced, like by trade, by design. He was just
invented social distancing.
Yeah, so he was just ahead of the curve on this, So 2020 came early in our house, and so.
Now does he miss having the people?
He misses school.
Yeah, he loves school.
He misses like going swimming and tumbling and doing all the things that the school provided, because even though he's in he's not in Torrent building anymore, they still got to go back to Torrent and use all the equipment there. And he really does miss that interaction.
And the structure.
Probably mostly the structure.
Yeah, he likes going station to station. So at home, he'll do his work. she does the heavy lifting with regards to that, but it's not school, and so he like separates the two. Like, okay, I'm doing school, but I'm at home, and so it's discongruent in his head altogether.
He does. And he's in the wrong place.
Business with pleasure.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So how has how has the pandemic like affected you guys? I didn't write that as a question. I can't imagine that it's really.
I'm gonna hand the keys to this one over to her. Like, she's been taking so I'm at work. I still generally work at least half of a day at the office. At the beginning, the first 3 months where it was the scariest, I was there the entire time. So she was left here with the children. So I'm going to pass this over to the braver among us, and she can answer that. I'm fine because I get to okay, see you later, everyone. So she's more impacted for sure.
Well, I mean, it really impacted Jude the most. Ezra had already he was injured, so he couldn't play soccer, and he couldn't really participate in gym class because he was injured. So to him, it was kind of like Ezra didn't seem to mind too much. Jude really, he took it hard because he just got used to a new teacher, a new school, a new routine. And he was really looking forward to diving into that. Plus, obviously going back to swimming class and tumbling and all of his favorite things. So it was, and because he doesn't understand what a pandemic is or what COVID-19 means for other people, he just he knew that his teacher wasn't sick and his friends weren't sick. So why are we not at school?
Right.
And so there was mainly, at first just trying to make him understand why we couldn't go back to the classroom. And with the uncertainty of not knowing when, it was always, well, we hope. And we'll cross our fingers and we write on calendars.
Yeah,
and then, of course,
and that doesn't work well with kids with autism because they if you say it's happening, it's happening.
He would talk 10 days, he would do the countdown until Whitmer, gave another announcement. And then I'd even try to show him, see, she said that people are still too sick. He's like, well, I just saw my teacher at a Zoom meeting yesterday and she seemed fine.
So
he's like, I'm calling foul here.
Just to try to add to some. So time, once he figured out time, time, very, very important.
Yes.
It is very important.
So very punctual.
I know just how important. Yes, I know. Yeah, exactly right. And so time matters.
Yeah.
And so the little windows, we try to build time windows. Where's the window? Well, no, we're just talking about a band. Where's the band? Okay, so we're talking about a segment of time between that. And then so this has been completely and utterly preposterous in Michigan as far as a special needs child would be concerned, at least specific to Jude. So I can't speak for everyone, but it's certainly been very difficult because there's nothing that's normal in the schedule. And generally speaking, my experience, they all thrive in some version of much more rigid structure than what I'm good. Hey, I don't need a bunch of boundaries. Just some general guidelines is fine for my day. But other people don't respond, Jude among them, just not having that ability to go and see his friends, do the things that he wants to do, check in station to station, go through his day, rinse, repeat. So once he's done with school, he's actually done here. Sometimes it spills into 4 p.m. with Lexia learning and some of these other things.
Yeah, and so that's just because we don't get it done, or he wants his breaks.
Needs breaks.
Because he's home. Yeah. And I can tell, going back to time, with the Zoom meetings and how it was when it was all new. If they were, someone was late getting on, or we had to wait for this child or wait for this, and he would get so anxious, and he's looking at the time, and he would just get, he would just get so upset, and then he would cry, and then it would basically, the Zoom meeting would be useless. So it took a long time. It took maybe a couple months of the Zoom meetings for him to really get into okay, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. And then eventually they did go back to in person, but then that stopped again. And so then it would start the whole anxiety. Then we got Google Meet, which is different than Zoom, and he's
So the same experience that every other parent has had. So
I
like
think
with
it's
in that
probably,
regard.
yeah, probably. I guess I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I
I
mean,
was
you're
just
good.
telling about me and Jude, so I don't know.
No. Hey,
No, that's perfect.
No, you're
That's
fine.
a perfect example, though. I mean, we're all going through this, but seeing this through the lens of a child with autism is very different because they do like that rigid structure. Have you been able to put some of that in place in your house?
I mean, we have the certain times that we have the meetings, and then he knows that we have to do, Lexia, eSpark, and typing.com. Now I usually give him a choice. Do you want to take an hour break and then do your stuff after this meeting or before? So I give him the option. And that usually seems to work better than saying, okay, let's do this now. That's what I mean, that's.
yeah. So
We're really not all that, we don't have like a hard structure.
she's not giving herself enough credit here. So there is
never
like
do.
there's a. Yeah, so she's deferring a little bit, but she does a really good job. It is a structured. I know exactly what's happening when I'm working remote. Like they do have a structured cadence to it. It has built-in breaks, like everything should, and so she's taking those built-in breaks to mean less structure. But in all honesty, she's done a great job, and it's helped normalize it as best as like what we could hope for in the situation. She's been a blessing. I've done very little. I basically, I'm busy. I got another meeting. I will see you all at some other point in time. And
Yeah, one of these times, these meetings, Jude's going to show up on that meeting. He's going to.
he likes to pop in sometimes.
He's going to get that code and be like, "Hey guys."
So yep, it's so she's done a great job. There is some structure now. It doesn't like substitute for the superstructure of the school environment, but it's been replicated. He has a workstation. He's got a calendar that's got, it's one of the interactive type calendars that she got. So the pieces are in place for it to be as normal as it can be, and he's understood. It's really just when there's upset conditions that it causes difficulty. So when he's expecting school for the week, this last week, or the week prior, they went back to school, and then all of a sudden there was a pause, right? And so that's the part that is it's a difficult sell for either me or her. That's where I come in and I do the little snake oil, like, hey, the great thing about this is, there's really no actual great thing about it. So I come in, that's, I guess, maybe my, addition to the value add is I come in and like try to spin things that are not really great for him. Like, oh, well, look, we can, explore outer space on the computer. So let's do that. Subject, don't ask what's with this kid. So she's done a great job with that. There is some structure in place to their day. So when he knows that it's remote, so he knows what to expect on Wednesday. He knows what to expect on Thursday when it is remote learning. She's done a really great job.
Yeah, we make sure we put it
letting
on
him
the
know how
calendar.
many there are and using the calendar. And so you've done a really good job for sure.
Well, I don't know. I've done a good job.
You've done a great job. Is he still alive?
I will pass back. Exactly right.
But yeah, for a kid like Jude, being with the time and the things that have to be the way they, like I said, he doesn't like to mix business with pleasure. So if he has homework, he's like, why would I do work at home? I'm home.
Yeah.
Like,
like
it just
Oh, sure. I mean,
I think that's kind of a
the difference between Mario Kart and homework, no brainer, right? Right. So yeah, when in Rome, like he's like, one's right over here, and then one's just a little bit up. So he tries to sneak off on occasion, little bio breaks, and the next thing you know, he's off of his meeting. Fun stuff, like, oh, I just hung up 5 minutes in and now I'm trying to get away with playing video games. So
that sounds a lot different than my 11-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, it's a smart way to live, right? So I'm actually, I would offer up that they have it figured out quite a bit better than what we did. We decided to just basically like toe the line and do what we need to do. And so, testing the limits has its limits at our age, right? So you don't want to go out and do something that you did when you were 20. Not good, not a great plan. For the young at heart out there, consider myself among them, my wild child wife here. So we have a little bit of young at heart, but some of the things are just, you slow down a little bit, you get a little older.
Yeah, for sure. So are there other supports that are in place right now for maybe outside agencies that you use, or is it all still through the schools?
We currently do not. We were used. I was just trying to remember the name of the place. It's right on Lawrence.
The
It's,
So,
I don't.
yeah.
Well, I was just asking if she knew the name of it.
There was he went to therapy, right?
Yeah,
So that's
it was
what you're driving
it was an
at.
out, but it wasn't outside. You know, we use our insurance, what insurance would pay at the time, where he did get occupational therapy and speech therapy. It ended up being that the insurance just wasn't really covering as much as what we had hoped going through getting the diagnosis with U of M. Now, that was so many years ago. I bet that's all changed now. I'm sure we could use our HSA now and all these things that we just didn't have back then. I know there's a musical therapy. We never really got into that either. I think he's just had so much support at Torrent, and he was doing so well with what they were providing us. I did send you the thing. The one great
Yeah, I'll
thing
add
was the
that
Jasmine.
to the competency piece.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I mean, the Jasmine's voice where he went in and we got the
Yeah,
iPad.
so that was awesome.
And they have a charity. It's a nonprofit, and they are just a wonderful organization. They've given so many iPads, and they help with the cost, because some of those ABA apps can be upwards like $300, and they help you like find ways to get them cheaper and show you how to use them. So your child, if your child is nonverbal or not very well at communicating, how to use them. And so that's pretty much one of the only. I don't know that we really did a whole lot of outside Torrent.
No, so I mean, he just for like clear line of sight to the folks, like he's transitioned into just would be just a regular old elementary school in an ASD specific class, and then he split some time between that and then like a regular fourth grade class.
Yeah,
and so
that's
he
what
can do
he's
like fourth
currently-
grade. Yeah, so that's where he's at now. So he doesn't have any
limited fourth grade work.
Yeah,
He doesn't do everything that they do, but
he does math with them. He's probably better than most of them. So right now we don't have him in any programs. All that was on the front end. So
Yeah.
for folks with the younger, like as they're going through, there's just a lot of different available things, but that starts to get peeled back as they age, and certainly
within his sorry to interrupt, within his ASD classroom, he does have his teacher, a speech therapist. Yeah, so there's a psychologist that comes in. So when we do our IEPs, there's still a team of at least 5 people, and that may include the 5 may include his gen ed teacher. Sometimes there's people that come and go, so it's hard to even tell sometimes how many people are actually in the full circle. So he still has like a large.
There's
circle.
a large team.
It's just we only interact with them pretty much on IEPs now, except for his main teacher, maybe an aide, and then his gen ed teacher here and there. So
yeah, so I would offer up just like if you're in a situation where you're not like local to Jackson, Michigan, and you're listening, like advocate for like ASD specific classes and reach out to whomever you need to. I think that's been the crucial thing. So we've never had to like navigate those waters because it's always been there for us. And I'm not sure so that's our experience. So we're coming from it like, hey, we just assume everywhere there is an ASD specific class. And so that's where we're coming from. That's been our experience and Jude's experience. But for any person that's potentially not having like any sort of ASD help, I know even in Michigan, they don't have quite as robust, depending on where you're at.
And I know you were talking about IEPs, and I was thinking the other day what a great idea that is for you to start to talk to parents about that, because I mean we've had it really easy, but I've seen people get so upset going to the IEPs, especially if they're maybe an ADHD child or like extreme ADHD, or maybe something very low on the spectrum of autism, where they are in a general classroom and they have an IEP. And it's very difficult, I'm sure, for the teacher to say, well, this one child needs all these things when I have 25 that don't. And I was wondering, how people do that. Like, cause I'm like, man, we've had it so easy. You know what I mean? Because they've made it easy for us. But I have seen where it's like very difficult for other parents when they're not given everything that we've been very fortunate to have the team that we have had. And I'm still in contact, I think, with every single one of them. And so, but yeah, I was really, when you had said something about the IEP the other day, I'm like, wow, I don't think I could even answer that question because I don't even need to, because it's all so easy for
you
us.
guys,
So
they do a great job of hand holding for parents through that Lyle Torrance Center. So I think that is a pretty unique experience to parents. I have another question, and it's more along the lines of Jude's socialization. Now, I know that he's going into a fourth grade classroom. One of the topics I'd like to discuss eventually with him live is inclusion. And do you feel like Jude's socialization has improved since he's been going into those classrooms? Do you feel like for sure?
Yeah, without a doubt. So his experience, so children these days, God bless them, they're so much nicer than when we were kids. I mean,
they are.
and I count myself among, like, just, you just kind of knuckleheading, you don't really know very much. These children all are raised with a whole lot more awareness and focus on that special needs doesn't mean something like what it meant, like, the people used to call people just retarded, right? To use, and that was the experience. So whatever it was that you were different, it was mean spirited, and so they were outsiders. They were looked at as such. They were treated as such, and that has not been the experience in 2020, 2018, 2015.
Yeah,
it's just they're just nicer. They just grow up with a lot more love and understanding about what special needs is.
He's been in gen ed classes for.
This is now the third year they started.
This is the third
They're
year.
Sweet as could be.
And all his classmates, they just love him and they help him. And even the other day they were in a Zoom meeting and they had to give each other a compliment. And the one little girl's, Jude, I just always love how nice you are to everybody.
So sweet.
And then someone said, you're always just so funny, Jude. But I mean, not in a bad way, because Jude is funny, does it?
So he's shenanigans. So the kids love it. They're like, wow, this guy is willing to do some reckless things, which makes our life so they're a little we've penny ante.
We've had no problems with, and he'll talk about some of the other kids. I think sometimes he would rather do that than even be in his ASD classroom. I think sometimes he feels like in the ASD classroom, there's either chaos over here or, maybe this child's having an issue with this. And when he's in the gen ed, I think sometimes he feels like, he's like, I'm doing math. I'm doing good math.
Right. He feels like he's just one of the other kids. He's like, I'm good. And
he does. And it's been great.
It has been. And I really, it warms my heart because I do, it's a scary thing thinking about him going into a room full of neurotypical kids and wondering if somebody will say anything. And the thing is with Jude, I'm not even sure that he would even comprehend it that it would hurt his feelings or he would even care. He would just be like whatever. I can do math better than you.
Yes, he doesn't really. Right.
Yeah,
he certainly doesn't compare himself to anything else. No. He's living in his own little silo. So he doesn't, if somebody were to, I'm sure that his feelings can be hurt, of course, but it's usually anxiety that would get him. But these kids are great. And it's socialized him a lot. Yeah. It started out, we're just getting him. They used to just have him shadow play. So get near kids that were playing on the slide.
Alongside each other.
Right. So that was kind of the first iteration of this was just hey, Jude, just be in the ballpark of watching these kids play. And then eventually so now you're outside the sandbox. Now you're in the sandbox. Now you're throwing sand at other kids. So now we got to step back out of the sandbox a little bit. And when we put you back in, we're going to have the discussion about not throwing the sand. And so some of these things have been sometimes they're hard not to laugh at, but it's also there's a lesson to learn, pushing kids into pools and such. And it's just kind of that's not okay. Right. And so being able to give him the little timeout that doesn't soul crush him, but also the lesson gets put across. I learned. So one time I made the absolute mistake of giving him a couple of taps upside his bottom. Back in the day, they call it a bit of a spanking, but it was just my hand and letting him know, hey, cross the line. This is when he was 2.5.
Yeah, so kind of, just a little nothing.
Yeah, nothing, but whatever. I'm not I'm not embarrassed of what I did.
I'm not a spank.
But I realized it literally it was not the thing to do. And so
respond to that.
normally. No, it did
No,
not
he had
go.
it- well,
It was
he-
completely and utterly like
the only thing he did was the next time that
demand
he
spankings.
got in trouble, I think he spanked himself.
Yeah, he would start spanking. Like it went totally sideways, right? So I meant no harm. It was just like a quick correction. There's no need to like ruin a kid's day for half of a day when they're 3 and just acting a mess. So I was just going to ruin 4 minutes of his time just to remind him, like, hey, we got to. And that was a total mistake. Never, ever did that. So everything else has been discussion. So if we have to stop and get ourselves to not be anxietal, that's what we do. If it needs to be a stop think, they taught us that along the way. Better than a timeout, and then sometimes the timeout's applied. And I've been talking too much, so I'm gonna.
Oh no, you're fine. I was just saying that I was thinking about the other day about how like discipline, and as another topic I was going to broach with you, like discipline and autism or special needs. When is it necessary? When are they actually being malicious, and how do you go about it? And just to parlay you into what you were saying about him being sociable with other kids, it's only really when he's around other kids sometimes that it seems like he would get himself into trouble, like actual something that I don't even know that it was like a malicious thing or just a let's see what happens type of thing, or maybe he saw someone else doing it, so then he mimicked it. But it was a good time to have a lesson about like stop think, or like filling up the balloon with the air, and then obviously for him the extreme is taking the iPad and the video games, and we put them up on the refrigerator. You can see them, but you can't play them, and that it's bad for everybody involved. But sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah. Oh, that has an immediate effect.
Yeah, that's the course correction of anything that he does that he knows he's not supposed to do, and and it's all part of growing with him, is learning like if I do this, what's going to happen. And if I continue to do it, what's going to happen? And so he's definitely tested those waters. And it's also a reaction to change when he gets a new school, a new teacher, and a whole new crew. And that's very difficult for him because he's just kind of like going along, and all of a sudden, yoink, now we're doing this. And he doesn't, but he adjusts pretty quickly, and he's been really good the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it was rough. It was brutal early on. I mean, soiling himself in classrooms.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of different stuff, and we'll just kind of go where you go.
Pandemic, he did not. He hasn't really backslid as far as.
Yeah.
I don't know that since I'm his teacher, and I'm not sure he's learning a whole lot, but not as much as he would be if he were in the classroom with a regular curriculum.
Well, he's learning more practical skills. I mean, he's learning a lot from the unexpected, really. I mean, when he expects that he's going back, and then you're like, sorry,
you leave your job and eat it, that.
This is
so right. I mean, so some of the things that we learn are things like most of the things that we learn outside of school, and school kind of teaches us kind of the rote learning characteristics. And then sometimes obviously like you get lucky and get an educator along the way. Pretty sure that most everyone's gotten a lot more teachers than educators. Here's some stuff, do the stuff, we'll grade the stuff, versus the people that actually are like, well, you already know the answer, and bring it out from within and help inspire you to like be curious or what have you, critically think. And so he's like, his situation is pretty much normalized now relative to like change is not something that just absolutely upsets the apple cart. We can change. He's old enough now where there's some autonomy there where they don't have to jump in the car with us to run some little errands up to Meijer or what have you to the grocery store. And so his older brother can act as a babysitter, and so he doesn't have to get dragged out, some of those things. So haven't really had to put it to the test as much, and most of the time we have something, it's a plan. So like, hey, we're going here on this day or at this time, and that's all totally doable. So
it's
in
more
some regards,
difficult when you surprise him with like, oh, we have to go do this now, when he's like,
well, in some regards, just getting older has helped out a lot. Yeah. And so long as he's got his older brother here, it's useful. Like, hey, you know what? Get off of your Fortnite for a minute, watch your younger brother, just at least keep your door open or something, teenagers.
Well, that's
Right?
normal.
And so,
we have kids the same age, so
I know.
just
That's
open the
what,
house
yeah.
down while I'm gone for 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to be gone for 10 minutes. Could you just not burn the house down?
So I still work. Well, Jude actually was, there was a terrible storm, downpour, and Jude had let Baxter out and closed the door.
Yeah. Let the dog out.
So Baxter is forever terrified of thunderstorms.
So,
where
yeah.
he's been prescribed Xanax for his anxiety for thunderstorms.
That's
we came
the
home
dog.
and there was a sopping wet dog with the thunder and the lightning.
Yeah.
And Jude's nice and dry, well, I'm going to eat my food and I don't have to worry about him eating.
He is, like, sometimes he and Baxter, like, this is what you get for eating my food, so paybacks or one of those things, right?
Yeah,
so,
they're frenemies for sure.
Yeah.
We thought it was going to be like, like, look at this. He is sweet dog. He's all therapeutic. Mm-mm.
So what are some of the other things you want to get through as far as, like, some of the other topics that you wanted to touch upon?
Well, you've touched on a lot of topics that I think are really important to parents, and I just love hearing your journey and all the things that have come, with that. And I love hearing about how helpful everybody has been along the way. I guess the last question I have is the last question on my list, and it's: is there anything else you'd like to share with parents about parenting your special needs child? We have a lot of parents out there who are brand new to this, and if you could give them one or two three-stage pieces of wisdom, what would that be?
But the brand new ones, and I'll say this without trying not to cry, is sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's been a good.
Yeah, sometimes going down memory lane, you start remembering like a lot of things that you really haven't thought of. You have to give yourself grace as a parent, and you have to ask for help even when you don't want to, and you have to really set boundaries within your structure, and sometimes you're going to have to go outside of your own comfort zone, and it's you just got to stick with it as far as when people are trying to help you, accept the help. If you're not sure, there's always other people to ask. This is a great group. I mean, we've got veterans, we've got people that have been in it. Like I saw some of the people that have been in it longer than me. I know he's got a boss at work who's got
he's about 30 now.
So
we've gotten a chance to.
So we're everywhere. And, I didn't really have a whole lot of support when Jude was little. It was, Brian was working a lot. And Ezra, he had just started potty training. And now we've got this crazy kid. And I've got the teenager. And it was just me a lot of times. And if I had this kind of support back then, it would have been, a lot easier, because we are all here to tell you that you're doing a good job. And if it's okay to have that glass of wine and some chocolate in your closet and just let things be for a minute, as long as the house isn't burning down and they can't hurt themselves. Sometimes you just need to do that. And I would say just try to find any support system, a friend, family member. It's really important.
Facebook group.
And it's really important just to give yourself, I look back and I'm like, I did it all wrong, but
yeah, no wrong.
One of my most favorite sayings is, you did what you did when you knew what you knew.
Yeah.
And the oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. And never mind.
Okay, so I'll just add in while you're getting the train back, to get that caboose back going on. So I guess maybe my insights is you need to have some patience. There's nothing that's going to get solved overnight. And you also do have to take some emotional time for yourself, and however that needs to look. One of the things that we went through specific to Andrea was I was gone. I was in school at night. So a lot of times I was trying to help out the family best I could. But a lot of times you end up with this really difficult situation where you just don't have a lot of people to lean on. And so you've got to still take the time. It's super important. I'm left-handed middle child, so patience is something that I was kind of hardwired in. Like, okay, we'll watch this all fall apart, and then I'll just kind of glide through the middle. But the point is that you do have to have an overabundance of patience. You do have to Andrea's point, you have to rely on what you can. Don't be afraid of the diagnoses that come, because it really doesn't change anything. So just focus on providing the help. So our goal has always been, we made a joke that what grade are you in? School. and so
it was no grade. It was just school.
That's where we were at that point. We never thought he'd ever be in fourth grade or any grade. It was just going to be school. And so we just try to cheer ourselves up with hey, school is something. There are fits in stores. And, I saw one of the things that always reminds me of my younger self was I saw a child on a leash. And so I was like, how cruel can these people be? Like, what is going on? You're treating your child like an animal. So flash forward some years, and we're buying a leash.
Yep, going to the county fair.
I'm here to tell you, it gave him the freedom that nothing else. We couldn't just set him down because he was gone. And so, but it gave him freedom. We never actually end up having to use
I was just going to say,
never, not once.
The funny thing is,
we bought the damn thing.
We left it at home. We survived the day without needing it. Nobody got lost, at least not for more than 20 seconds.
So,
and then we never ended up using it.
So if you need to buy a leash, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, and so it gives them freedom that you otherwise can't give.
If they're runners, because he used to be a runner.
He was a runner.
And when you can't, we all know. I mean,
turn your head.
If I had a dime for every time my mom lost me. Now I'm looking back.
I would ask for the pile of dimes. Yeah, I mean, so was that intentional, or was that if I had a dime that every time my parents walked away from me, question. I mean, so do what you think, and don't let your younger self be an obstacle just because you thought something. Sometimes they have fits in stores, and some people will don't feel at all compelled to don't feel bad about it.
And people are
tell them what you need to tell them.
Yeah, people, the thing is, I've noticed, so when Jude was, just real quick, it was a story, I think when, I can't remember how old Jude was. Maybe Ez was 9-ish. I'm going to say it was 9-ish. And we were in a Wendy's line inside. Jude was starting to have a meltdown. It was long line, and these ladies were just cruel. They were just nasty, talking about my bad kids come from bad parents and stuff like that. And Ezra, his little mighty, puts his hands on his hips, and he tells those ladies, "My brother has autism, and if you can't be nice, then maybe you should leave." And the whole line started clapping, and they were like, "Yeah, maybe you should leave." And it was like,
Ezra, what a good boy.
Yeah,
he's been awesome.
Ezra has, when I was talking, I was just thinking about him today, about how awesome
he's been. Great. So I guess the last thing, because we're running out of time for sure, is we love you out there, and you got friends in us, and so don't ever feel like you're alone. There's a big community. We all have our stories, and we'd love to share yours. So thanks, Laura, for taking your time with us.
Thank you, Laura.
And letting us
joining me. I really do appreciate it, and I'm glad you could be my guinea pig for my first interview. You're so easy.
Hey,
to
happy
talk
to be.
Yeah, this is high anxiety for me. I know. I'm sure.
She did really great.
Showed.
You're doing great.
So.
You're doing great. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that link to the group that you said in the comments. And then if you wanted to share a picture of Jude in the comments, you're welcome to do that. I'm sure people would love to see what we're talking about. He's just got the best smile ever.
Yeah, he's fun.
So thank you again so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.